Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 598 of the Juicebox Podcast. Did you ever get on a phone call and just chat, not remember why you got on the phone call to begin with, and had a good time and felt like a good back and forth, fun time, there were laughs had, etc.? That's this episode. I have no idea how to tell you what this episode is about. But I enjoyed it. It's a good conversation with Jessica, who is the mother of a child with type 1 diabetes, and you're going to listen to it. And when you do, you should remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. And with that, I give you a podcast about nothing. Hey, U.S. residents that have type 1 diabetes or care for someone who does, don't forget t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Head there, fill out the survey. Takes less than 10 minutes. Super simple. Absolutely, what's that word when nobody knows who you are? Anonymous. HIPAA compliant. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Help people living with type 1 diabetes. Help the show. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Find out more and get started today with the Dexcom CGM at dexcom.com/juicebox. I'll spell it for you. Dexcom.com/ do I really have to spell Dexcom? All right. DEXCOM. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Listen to how sultry my voice just got.
To say how to be the cool mom.
How old are your children?
So I have my type 1 is 9 going on 10 next month, and I have a 7-year-old.
All right, Jessica, I'm already recording, but I got to tell you, if you're looking for those kids to teach you how to be cool, I think you're in trouble to begin with. Don't you?
Yeah. I don't know. We're pretty cool. They're pretty cool kids.
Okay.
You keep telling them you got cool parents, right? Doesn't that it passes on? I have my other one who just popped in. He was wondering, he's like, can I say hi to Scott too?
How many babies did you have?
Oh, I only have 2.
Oh,
we're done.
2. Wow, they can say hi if they want. I don't care.
Yeah, you want to say hi to Mr. Scott? All right, hang on. I'm going to put the headset on him. One moment.
Sure.
Hi, Mr. Scott.
Hey, what's your name?
My name's John.
John, how old are you?
9 going on 10 July 14th.
Nice. Are you the one with diabetes?
Yes, I am.
No kidding. How old were you when you got it?
I can't hear what he said.
How old am I when I got it?
You were 7.
7 when I got it.
Do you want us to kick your mom out of the room and I'll just interview you instead?
I don't know. Maybe.
All right. Can she hear me?
No, she can't. You want me to pass her back?
No, look at her like we're talking about her and just smile a little bit to make her feel nervous. Right?
Yeah.
Like
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, good job, man. That's excellent. All right. Yeah, put your mom back on, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Go for me, bud. All right. You weren't talking smack about me, huh?
I told him to look at you. I said, look at your mom and smile like we're talking about her so we can make her nervous.
He did. Exactly. He's like, I'm doing it. Got it.
Yeah, he kind of ruined it when he told you he was doing it, but it was still good. I thought it was delightful. Yeah, do you feel good about your space? You sound good.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're already talking, so I mean, just say your name and we'll keep going.
Sounds great. Okay. Jessica. Last name's Armstrong, and we're from Northern Virginia.
You definitely want your last name in this?
Well, depending how this goes, how does that sound?
Sounds like you're hoping that I'll remember to take it out if you tell me to.
No, it's fine. Whatever.
Cool.
Why
Excellent.
not?
So are you from that area originally?
No. So I grew up I was a military brat. We were in the Navy. So we grew up overseas. Right now I'm calling from Charleston, South Carolina. So we we come visit family down here, but we live and work in Virginia.
Okay. Yeah, because you have an interesting accent that I can't figure out.
I like your accent, actually.
Thank you. I work on it very hard.
I believe it.
I'm unaware of how I sound. I only know when the emails come and people mock me. It seems to be playful, but
I was gonna say,
yeah.
I don't think anyone means any harm, of course.
No, I don't either. But when people send you emails and just ask for certain words to be repeated, I don't think that is friendly completely. I think it's funny, but it's okay. No, you just you stretch out some words, but it's not Northern.
No, but I do. I mean, so my husband's from upstate New York and we love, the boss, New England is amazing.
Oh, you've got that going on. Okay. All right. I've got it straight now. Excellent. Well, I just spoke to your son. That was John.
Yes.
And John was 7 when he was diagnosed.
Yep. At the end of first grade.
Wow. What a graduation that might have been.
It was. So we knew nothing. We were naive. I would play the dumb card when it came to it. The only thing I knew about, diabetes was I assumed the type 2. Didn't really know there was a difference. Mm-hmm. Googled it the night before, actually. He was just being sluggish and we were having some issues. Your normal, we thought playing too much soccer, too much water and just guzzling water. Didn't think anything of it. Started Googling and diabetes kept coming up, but I was like, surely not. I mean, we have no family history. Again, didn't know anything about diabetes. And the next day I took my son to the pediatrician and they're like, it's the flu, nothing serious. And I was like, we need a blood test. I want to do something. And they were like, why? So I said, hey, this is what's coming up. There's like, you don't have any family history, do you? I said, no, not that we know of. So we started with a urine test and he's like, you need to go to the emergency room now.
Oh, so they went from the flu to you better get to the emergency room.
That quick. And we just started spring break. I was planning on taking my kids to the trampoline park, but I was like, hey, let's make a stop here. And called my husband, who was in the Department of Defense at the time, had to break him out of the Pentagon. I said, hey, we got to go pack a bag, trying to keep it cool in the car. I have 2 kids who are excited to be on spring break. And now we're checking into the ER. When we got there, they were surprised he was even walking, more or less conscious is what they told me. His blood sugar was 893.
Wow. That's a big number.
Yeah. And he was still awake and, still able to talk. They, got him on IVs. And that's when they started telling us, he's type 1. What? So my husband and I are trying to Google and figure out what does that mean? And that started our adventure.
Yeah, no kidding. Could you look back and notice, had he lost weight?
Well, see, okay. So Scott, I think you and I love listening to your podcast because I can relate. So I was always a chunky kid. Mm-hmm. So I've been paranoid. We try not to do, we did sugar, but within limit. But I thought he was always a chunky baby. So he was starting to thin out and I just assumed he was growing.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe looking back, I personally think he's had it for quite a while. And we just didn't, go into DKA or this just hit it. But yes, now looking back, I think we could have seen it, but I'm thankful that we caught it when we did.
Of course. So you probably lived through the honeymoon without knowing he had diabetes.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And we even actually went through the honeymoon for quite a while, even afterwards.
Okay. That's interesting. I wonder about all the running around at soccer too. Like there must have been a real combination there because if all the exercise didn't help him keep ahead of the number, then obviously it was time to be diagnosed. I am fascinated. Doctors like to sometimes default to kind of making fun of you for, using what they call Dr. Google, but it turns out you figured it out.
Oh, and for the one time when I even remember, so the night, again, we were at church talking to a friend who's a nurse and, now I know, not all nurses know what type 1 is, but she was like, no, he's not type 1. And I think she even thought, thinking it's a type 2, like he doesn't look like it or, I think, and we tried to be active. That's what, and again, trying to burn out kids' energy to make them happy, keep mom and dad happy. So yeah, I agree.
Sleepy, not happy.
Both. I think it goes together.
Well, all I've learned from these last couple of minutes is that soccer causes type 1 diabetes.
Well, I will also say, if you ask if you ask Sean, he will also blame it on Olive Garden. So we secretly joke that Olive Garden caused type 1 diabetes. We went out a few nights before his diagnosis, and he just seemed sluggish. And again, we try, we eat like a normal family, but try to be healthy. And afterwards, he just seemed to tank and was just kind of had trouble keeping up with us.
Yeah.
and naive, I was all right.
So the unlimited breadsticks and the pasta,
Yes.
and then his body just couldn't process any of it, and it drug him
No.
right down.
And now I feel like the horrible parent. But yes, so we never eat at Olive Garden again. So we, sorry, Olive Garden, but no, I'm not a fan. And it never really was to begin with. And that just kind of nailed it for us.
Well, I know some Italians that would I think they would crucify you for going to Olive Garden if they
I agree.
gave them a
It's not,
chance.
no, it's not real Italian. No,
Not the
no,
point.
sir.
Well, listen, I think the one thing to talk about here is people joke about it or say it, tongue in cheek, but I think they mean it, mainly. You said, I'm the terrible parent that took somebody to Olive Garden while they had diabetes. I didn't know, but you realize that there's no way for you to know that. And he's alive and he's healthy, and I would never think of that again if I was you. There's just no way to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like taking a wrong turn.
And I think you're right. And I think this has helped us. This has been kind of like our tribe of listening to funny stories, listening to you and Arden of, you can't hold it. I mean, you take it day by day. I can't place blame. And, trying to explain that to the time at a 7-year-old of, no, you didn't cause it. You didn't do anything. We didn't do anything, but here's what we're going to do to get you on, to keep you as best as we can within numbers and range. Or, we recently, due to your podcast, got on the Omnipod. So we've been playing the Omnipod game and just learning, but I mean, loving the flexibility and trying to ensure, yes, you still need to bolus for that pancake if you want. I still secretly sometimes cringe, but we're trying to build that independence with him as well of what can you have? Nothing's really technically off limits. I mean, I'm with you. I do see, there is two type of people in the type 1, the low carb, and we try to shoot for the middle range and trying to still be and let him enjoy his childhood, but keep him healthy.
Yeah. I don't see, well, if you listen, I don't have thoughts about how people eat. But I do know people who eat incredibly heavy carbs every day, and I hear them talk, and I do think, like, mix a salad in once in a while. Like, what are you doing? It's not you don't have to, you don't have to double down on it. I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. Maybe fit sometimes, like, just because you've learned a bolus for it doesn't mean you have to have it every day. It's cool that you know how to cover Honey Smacks for breakfast, but maybe have eggs once in a while. It's not
we do eggs. Yeah. I would say definitely probably not Honey Smacks. I don't know. That's, you're going old school there. I don't think I could do the Honey Smacks, but yes.
I wore a CGM, it's been like 7 months ago now, so that people could watch my regular blood sugar. I put it up online for a while.
Yeah.
And people were like, eat cereal. And so I got to the store and I'm like, what cereal did I used to like when I was a kid? And so I'm looking, and they ruined Fruity Pebbles. I don't know what they did to it, but they're not right anymore. So it was a no to that. And I was like, Honey Smacks, I remember having once that they still seemed like they were so sugary that you couldn't chew them. They just compressed like packing peanuts.
Ew.
It was disgusting. But as a child, I remember enjoying it. And I liked corn pops. So I bought the two of them and mixed them together. I thought if I was going to eat a bowl of cereal, I might as well really go for it. And it's funny, it didn't really touch my blood sugar. I had to
at all.
No,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I had to have,
and you should create a new cereal.
Yeah, and please, anyone who knows Honey Smacks and corn pops know they go together. But I don't. That's a joke. I don't imagine anyone has ever tried that before. But
maybe now.
I did eat enough finally to get my blood sugar to go up, but I had to have a second bowl of it and really kind of push it. And still, I think I was only 160. I think it was one of that and pizza. I think I had to eat 3 or 4 slices of pizza to get my blood sugar up into the 160s, and then it stuck there for a good long time. But I really had to eat a lot to make my blood sugar go up like that. It was both interesting and a little sad, and you know what I mean? It was a weird situation.
Next time you need to throw some donuts in there. That seems to be the new, we're on vacation mode. Krispy Kreme donuts.
I can't eat a donut too much. That seems like a lot of sugar to me. But
it is, and you're not missing anything.
So your email was interesting because not even email. I finally fixed my system so it asks people why they want to be on the show. and you were like, just to have fun and talk. And I was like, that's is great. So
hopefully it comes out that way. Yeah. Well, and then I, again, can relate to you. I was at home at the time. I was a stay-home mom, living the dream. I worked for the Department of Defense for a little bit, and then my husband, we got married, had our first child, John, and then daycare being what it is in our area, I decided to stay home and was living the dream. And after John's diagnosis, it was like, oh, so what are we going to do? My husband was looking to get out of the Department of Defense, and a teaching job popped up, and he's always wanted to be a history teacher. So I said, well, to make this work, I'm going to have to go back to work. Okay. So I picked up, ended up back at the Department of Defense, and now he's teaching where my son goes to school.
Wow. That's interesting. What did you do? Can you tell me what you did at the DOD, or was it?
Yeah. Nothing. I wish it was something cool. It's nothing fun. I do human resources for, kind of like senior executives. So these are the top, of the people of the government, my, presidential appointees, people who make the big bucks and the big decisions at the Pentagon.
And you were in the human resources department for that situation.
Yep. So we hire and fire them.
Oh, do you fire a lot of them?
No, thankfully not too many. More the hiring at this point. So, and now with, for the Secretary of the Army, we just appointed our first female Secretary of the Army. Mm-hmm. So so she's on board, and then she brings all her people on. And
I see.
So it's my job just to make sure everyone gets on and gets paid.
Oh, that's a good job to have.
Yeah.
Although staying home sounds like a good job too. May I be honest for a moment? I have been at home for so long now. I honestly believe that if you came to me and said, Scott, you have to go back, you're going to go to work, it's going to start next Monday, I'm going to give you a whole week to think about it, that by Sunday night, I'd be crying. I think I would go into a dark room and cry. I don't want a job.
I don't blame you. I will say the money's nice.
Yeah,
that's the benefit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's the same thing. You just bounce with it and you go. I would say I'd probably give you a month to tell you that if you were coming back, and that's pretty much how we were. And then we're like, oh, let's go on vacation. So you're right. Towards the end of that vacation, I was kind of like, oh, am I really doing this? I haven't. By that point, it's almost 7 years. I'm going back into the Pentagon. Can I do this? What am I doing?
Two aspects of being at home that seem like I couldn't find a way to trade them. So the interaction with my family was the one thing that I did not expect for that to be, and don't judge me. I was pretty young when I became a stay-at-home dad, but I didn't expect for all that to, I was just like, oh, I thought I just looked at Cole and I thought, well, I'll just keep this kid alive and do the laundry, and this will be like my job. But there's just a connection that happens when you're around people for such a long time, especially your children and your wife and things like that, that I don't know how great I'd be at being away from everybody for too long. I do think when my son went to college, I cried at just a crazy amount driving home. And so I'm not certain, I'll probably just die when Arden leaves. You know what I mean? My brain will just short circuit and I'll fall over. But the other thing is schedule, being able to say to yourself, these are the things I have to do tomorrow, and I can do them whenever I want, as long as they're finished. And I can stop in the middle of something and go do something else, and no one has an opinion about how I do it or when I do it. That kind of freedom is amazing. And,
it is.
I would have, I don't know how much trouble I would have letting someone else schedule out my life. Although I don't know if that's even how works anymore. Everybody's at home anyway, right?
Well, I would say, and I'm still home from COVID aspect of things, so it has been interesting last summer of, now the kids were home and, popping in on, MS Team meetings or Zoom meetings to say hello to, the assistant secretary of whatever. And it's like, yep, that's my child and other child and the dog barking in the background. Yes, it happens. I think it's going to be a transition for us when we do go back. You're right. It's been almost to have the freedom to work, cut it off, and then go spend family time and not have to worry about commuting or doing all that. I only had a 20, maybe half-hour ride on the bus every morning and coming back. So, which everyone's like, you should podcast. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. So that's how I finally started listening to the Juicebox podcast when we were at home. I'm, plugging along and have it on the Alexa. But up to that point, I would always read or just stare out the window to mentally unwind or figure out what I need to do or make what's going on, for dinner plans.
Do I help you unwind?
Sometimes. I mean, now I think because it's just nice, or, just to hear the bantering back and forth to other,
Mhm.
whoever's your guest, or it's, to laugh where it's nothing serious. I think I like that aspect of the podcast. It is a serious matter what we're dealing with on a daily basis with our kids or ourselves, whoever is that type 1, but to be able to have humor with it, which I think we all need at this moment sometimes in our life of, yes, it can help unwind.
I don't think the podcast would still exist if it was dry and just informative. And
yeah, it gets boring. It gets old. I mean, I like history. My husband is a history teacher, but and I think that's trying to make it fun.
I agree. Okay.
It's always a good thing.
So how long ago did Omnipod, like when did you guys get a pump?
So we got it going into Christmas break. We thought it would be a good time. So that was in December of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we'd have that 2 weeks to kind of play with it. I did want to recommend, I think I got it off your Facebook page and hearing you talk about it. I wore an Omnipod for the first time and let John put some saline, wore it for about a day of just flushing ourselves through it with our Omnipod coordinator, who was phenomenal. And I think he was excited to see, hey, Mom, look at this. And let's give you 10 units of saline. It's like, okay, child, calm down. And for me, and I think showing him too, that first time when you stick it in, where, okay, it really didn't hurt as much, and to witness, something that he does on a daily basis. So we did that in December. Had our first, is it not working? It kept going up. Numbers were going up. I waited probably a little longer because I didn't know all right, I think it was a bad pump site, or, we had to change it. And then we saw the numbers, do that. But I think right now we're doing well with it. I also like at school, he doesn't have to, physically inject himself. We were on MDI for quite a while and have to worry about, does he have what he needs, has been helpful.
Would he inject in his classroom or would he go to the nurse?
So we would go we have what the office is, and we have a nurse, kind of quasi nurse who's on staff. And my husband was there if he needed to get called out. And yes, he would we kind of gave him a private room to do so.
Yeah.
He was the only type 1 for about 2 years. And then we actually had someone who joined his class who's also a type 1. So there's 2 of them in 4th grade going now into 5th grade, which he loves to actually have someone his age.
Right.
So she's on the Dexcom, and they compare numbers and talk a lot between each other. So it's kind of neat.
That's very cool. I loved the idea that, Arden could just give herself insulin in her classroom and she didn't have to leave. That was a big deal to me, not having to leave the room.
Well, and it normalizes things, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense. I'm hoping we can get to that point with him. I'm just nervous about the phone aspect of things, or...
What makes you nervous?
He's probably going to listen to this later, Scott.
Wait, John, I think we're about to talk about your lack of maturity or something like that. Look away.
Well, he's still young, so it makes me nervous giving him, a phone but I can say, and I tell him this, I do remind him. I mean, he's been able, and which is, if class has cupcakes, he now knows, okay, cupcakes, I'm going to bolus about 25 to 30 carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he can do that himself. So it's just constantly continuing, like you said. I think more maturity when we get there will be helpful.
Yeah, I had a lot of luck with the texting. I thought and I'll say, if I have the opportunity, I think texting is the unsung diabetes tool of parenting somebody who has type 1. Just the idea that you can kind of be there without being there. It also helps the timing a lot. Instead of, we're going to have a cupcake, so I'll walk to another room, however long that takes, and then give myself insulin and then walk back. And you can just say, hey, I see the teacher moving around with cupcakes. I'm going to bolus now. You know what I mean? And then it just boom, and it happens. So that thing is texting. It's CGMs, pumps, texting. To me, those are the 3 tools.
I agree. No, I think it goes hand in hand. Well, I will say, and I just wanted to shout in regards to, I know one of your sponsors, who I've heard nothing about good things, Dexcom specifically, if you need to edit that out, but it didn't work for us. And I feel like in the type 1 community, it works for a bunch of other people, but we at certain intervals in our adventure felt like we were failures because it didn't work for us. And everyone kept saying how great it was. So we ended up on the Freestyle Libre, which we've been on for about almost a year and a half. And that works for us. Now, obviously, as it advances Dexcom, I'm hoping eventually it's going to get there on certain things. I mean, now the Libre 2 is out, but it works, our numbers are always accurate we just had issues with the Dexcom back and forth. And, we were all frustrated. John was upset. It just wasn't reliable for us. So,
hold on one second. Sorry, I'm getting my throat to clear. That I'll edit out. The part about Dexcom I'll leave in. Now I'll probably just leave it all in because I don't care. So I've seen it not like the best way I could describe it is it just doesn't mesh with some people's body chemistry, but I haven't seen it that frequently. But I do know what I can think of a person off the top of my head where, their blood sugar's like, it's 220 and they're like, no, my blood sugar's 80, or it says 80 and it's 300. Like it just never worked for that person. And there's nothing they were, once I helped them dig through it, I couldn't see a thing in the world they were doing wrong other than, maybe it just doesn't work for everybody. And I don't know why that would be. I'm not a scientist, but it makes sense to me, that it wouldn't be for everyone.
And so we were in the same boat where it was, sometimes, 200 points off was a big deal.
No, that would be something not working. Yeah. But I think what gets confused when people talk about it is people will say, oh, Dexcom, whatever you're talking about, it doesn't have to be Dexcom. It doesn't work for us. And then people just think that means it doesn't work. It doesn't mean it won't work for you. It didn't work for that person. And it really is, I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't understand when people think that something's going to be perfect for everybody. But it's such a letdown because it's not like there's 1,000 options and you do have diabetes. It's not like you really wanted this, universal remote control to work for your TV setup, but it didn't work. And you're like, oh, I guess we'll just use 3 remotes instead. Like, it feels like a real, like, oh my God, like I was going to like really lean on this thing. So,
well, yeah, it was, and what it does. I mean, so now we've become, yes, I think like when you do rely on that CGM so much at night to just be able to bink in and say, okay, here's your, do I need to give insulin, where we're at? And I think for us, it was trying to show too that, especially to John, of, embracing technology. I do feel like I'm an older person than what I really am. I've already, gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't, I told you podcast, I'm not really sure what that is. But just because I'm uncomfortable or uncertain doesn't mean I need to, be away from that technology, especially for a growing child who, this is, as it's advancing rapidly, to jump forward where it's like, we were comfortable on MDIs. Well, yeah, but is that something he wants to do? So it was, hey, let's try the Omnipod. Mm-hmm. But now when he's like, can I just keep the Dex or the Libre off? I'm like, yeah, how about you keep it off for a night? But now I'm so used to seeing that at night. I need to see it just to, keep those stable and make sure you are leveled.
Well, the other thing that I guess we don't talk about because it seems like, I don't know, you're shaming somebody. I guess that's such a millennial word. I don't really think of it that way, but that's not the point. Is that user error is a huge problem with technology. And yet, and I'm not saying you were doing it wrong. I'm saying that, there are a lot of people who are just like, this thing doesn't work. And you're like, well, you're using it wrong. And like there is especially with pumping, I think there is a time where it's a little like starting over because you're relearning something again. And pumping frequently, basal is not the same as it was with MDI. And that happens to a lot of people. They start a new pump and then they're like, oh my God, my blood sugar's high all the time. And then they make that leap to the pump doesn't work.
No, I agree. And it's sticking it out. And I remember even pulling up your other paths, listening to tips and your pro tips and going back because again, we get comfortable in those things. So again, easy to swag on certain things. And I knew with his MDI, we were still relatively low, I would argue, comparative to some other, for insulin purposes, maybe 2 units per meal is what we were at. His Basaglar was a little higher. So, transitioning over, it was like, that doesn't transition. So and my husband and I both were getting frustrated. It's like, all right, we just need to hold out. And that month, maybe even 2 months of just trying to learn, going back and forth and resetting. Yeah. He's a growing boy also. So that throws things in the loop too.
No, I hear you. I mean, everything's, this stuff's fantastic. Look, I can tell you right now that if you came to this house and tried to take the Dexcom and the Omnipod out of here, I would meet you with force. You know, and,
I think everyone's like that. We all have it. Yes, technology. No.
Right. It does what it does. I can be completely honest and say that I guess I could do it with MDI and Dexcom. It would be a lot of shots and a lot of like thinking, more thinking than I would want to be involved with it. I don't think Arden would want to be involved in it either. But it's doable. But without the CGM, now I think you're saying to yourself, if I'm not using a glucose monitor, like purposely, not that you can't afford it or your insurance won't cover it or something like that, but if you're purposely not using it, I don't know how you can be comfortable believing that your A1C, if it's lower, is not like, I don't know how you can't slip back into that 80s idea of like, well, you must have a lower A1C because you're low a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to know that or not know that, I guess.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and we try to, and we're still trying, you know, it's a balancing act, and we still, every now and then we'll hit a low. I think we find now when we made that switch to the Omnipod, I found exercise didn't affect us as much as it used to when we were on MDI. So I would kind of counter, you know, okay, I'm getting ready to bolus. Let's, you know, you're going to go running in a little, we'll go ride a bike or something. So I went, you know, would go lower in the insulin, and then come to find out, that didn't work out like it was supposed to. You didn't go what your body didn't do what I needed it to do, buddy. And so there is still sometimes that, and that's usually I find when we still do get those lows. But thankfully, John, we've already from the beginning we tried to be intuitive of, hey, what does a low feel, for him to recognize it. So even now, like he'll run around without, if he doesn't have his, you know, we say robot parts in, he can usually pick up when he's going low or getting ready to drop, which has been phenomenal. And I think why we stayed on MDI a little longer, just so he could recognize that. And I know some people can, some people can't, but thankfully he still can. Like he'll wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and say, you know, I do feel low. Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're right at 70 and you're dropping. Yeah. Okay. Let's, get you.
There's no doubt that people can feel it, but you know, to argue the other side, I always tell Arden, if how you felt was an important measurement of this, then there wouldn't be a meter. So
that's true too. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
it's always nice to have that. Or there's sometimes too when you're not low and but you might feel it, and it's you're
nice
at
to know.
180.
Yeah, I love it when she's like, I don't need to test. Like I feel right. I was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Let's just do it anyways.
Trust
okay.
Me. She'll go, trust
Thanks.
me. It's okay. And sometimes I'll go, okay. If trust me comes up, then I'm like, all right, I don't want you to think I don't trust you. And sometimes I'll just be like, look, just test so we can both see. Like maybe you'll be right and I'll be wrong, and that's fine too. So
yeah, we're the same way. I'm like, yes, you can prove me wrong. That's okay. Yes, yeah. John, go ahead. Just show me.
Do it.
Yeah.
There you go. Well,
it's done.
It's done. So you guys are pretty new to this still.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I would say 3 years comparative, to some of you and your guests.
Well, not even compared to other people. Just like if you really like, maybe I'm wrong, but the first year is a blur, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that doesn't count because you didn't learn anything the first year. You're just like, oh my God, look, he's still alive. Every morning you're like, yay. And so.
Yeah. Does anyone else do that? You're like, is he sleeping in or should I be concerned?
Oh my God.
Yes.
I could tell the sadder stories, but I try not to put them on the podcast, but I would put Arden to bed and just look at her and think like, don't die, don't die, don't die. And then walk out of the room. And it was a completely earnest feeling, just like I 100% was just like crossing my fingers and walking out of the room before I understood what I was doing.
Well, and I think, our endocrinologist, and we do get that. And I understand for safety reasons or whatever, you do get a little scared. We were scared too. We're just kind of, you don't want to overdo it, double check in the middle of the night, do this, do that. And you're just like, I'm never going to sleep again.
Yeah.
What? And then we were eventually, it seemed like his body got regulated. And then I'm like, are we being horrible parents and selfish? Because I can't check in the middle of the night. I didn't want to wake him up, and he would always wake. So it got to the point, do we still need to do the 2 a.m. checks? He seems fine.
Are you using insulin? Well, if you are, your blood sugar may be jumping up and down and up and down and up and down, 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 and there's no way to know where it stops, right? Or if it's going to, or how much more insulin you need when it's up, or how less, it's liquid, right? Less insulin, how much less insulin you would need to stop making those lows. It's all kind of just a guessing game. You're testing with your meter at certain increments. I understand, that's good. And you have a great meter, I hope. I hope you have the Contour Next One blood glucose meter, but that's not the point. The point of this is you could use with some more data, a little more vision. You could use a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Did you hear that magical music when I said Dexcom G6? As if I lined it up completely just so that would happen? I did. That's what I did. I'm just bored today, and I thought, let me see if I can run my opening thoughts right into the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and I did it, and now I'm proud of myself. I'd be more proud if you headed over to Dexcom.com/Juicebox to really look into the Dexcom G6 CGM. Listen, no joking around. Being able to see the speed, direction, and number of your blood sugar is huge, right? 89, 215, 187. What does that mean? What if you knew it was 187 and headed down? What if you knew it was moving down at 2 or 3 points per minute? Wouldn't that be interesting? It would, trust me. It helps me every day make great decisions with my daughter about her blood sugar. And it would help you, I swear. I'm not saying that my results are going to be yours, but my daughter's A1C has been between 5.2 and 6.2 for almost 8 years. And the information that I get back from the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor is at the core, the center, at the focus of how we make those decisions about insulin. I've learned so much from watching the Dexcom, and I think you would too. Dexcom.com/Juicebox.
He's okay. And they're like, well, if you're okay with that, I'm like, yes, we need to sleep too. And so does he. There's an
incredible balance to be struck. And yet, again, I'm not arguing, but you can look at it from both directions. Like if you need to, I don't understand if it's important to test your blood sugar during the day. Why is it not important to test it during the night?
Yeah.
Is it because you want to sleep? Because that seems like the only reason. And by the way, really, really valid reason, because little Johnny's not going to be okay if mommy and daddy are stabbing each other,
Yes.
Just like,
well, I can't tell you. Yes, there has been times, or going in the middle, you know that.
Yeah.
And stabbing yourself at the same time, not getting enough blood. And
yeah, you're just so tired. You're poking your own finger, and then you're arguing, and nobody's rested, and you can't say enough what good rest is to people. You really, broken sleep might be the worst thing you can do to yourself.
I agree. No, it was, you're starting childhood. Yeah. It's a new baby, but not. And
it never goes away. It feels like it's like, when you have a baby, you're like, if I can just live through this 6 months, that kid will sleep through the night and I will be sane again. Like, that's how it feels. And then the kid,
there's an end.
Yeah, there's an end coming, and you can't see it with the diabetes because, I mean, look, Arden's insulin's incredibly well regulated, but she still can get low, and it, and low could mean 50, right? And that needs intervention. And without the technology, I guess without the technology, she would probably sleep a full night with her blood sugar that low. If somebody didn't know, once a month, maybe, or so. I don't know,
Yeah. No, well, like you said, there's no need to at this point anymore, which,
It's interesting. You get the beeping and you're like, ooh, okay. I'll go take care of it. And then it doesn't seem so bad. And I have to say too, algorithms are, if you're using a pump with a glucose monitor, the algorithms are insane. They're just, even if you try to get low, I don't think that Loop has physically let Arden get below 50 in forever. Like, even if she tries to get low, it's now she hasn't been in some emergency situation where cutting off the insulin wouldn't help. Luckily that hasn't happened, but and I don't believe that it would help if if that happened, if we gave her, just viciously too much insulin or something like that, I don't think the loop could stop it. But that's just common sense. That's not speaking about the technology. But in general, when it's making all the decisions throughout the day, it is in general putting you in a position where an emergency low is incredibly unlikely. So even if you get a drifting low from activity or something unexpected, it does a fairly good job of stopping it from being like a call 911 situation.
Of anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's our next, I think, hurdle to figure out, yes, of the looping aspect of things.
Can you loop with a Libre?
I think you can. I think, well, from what I read, Scott, now again, I'm not just reading it like, can I? So the Libre 2, my understanding, and we've tested it out, is kind of more like the Dexcom. So it's a full CGM.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can build your own with the Libre and with the Omnipod.
Okay. Well, that would be, you're talking about, just so people understand, you're talking about a do-it-yourself system, not through the
Correct.
FDA, not through the companies, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or eventually, hopefully. Fingers crossed. For someone like me, I would prefer those companies to get where they need to get. So I can just, add that to us and not have to worry about doing it myself. No.
I think Loop's amazing, and I don't want Arden to have to use it. So I would rather there be an option directly from the company that's viable. And we're talking,
and I think isn't Omnipod?
Yeah, we're talking right now in June of 2021, you and I.
Okay.
This won't go out for a while, but the Omnipod 5 will be out soon. And Dexcom 7, I think, will be announced at some point.
Okay. And I think the Dexcom, from what I've seen of the 7, it kind of almost looks more like a Freestyle Libre almost. I feel it's just one piece, right?
Tiny little disc, disposable. You'll wear it. I think it's still 10 days.
Okay.
I'm not sure, honestly. Like I said, the announcement hasn't happened yet. I booked Kevin for the show. Like, he'll be on in like 20 days. And he's going to tell me all about it. But I don't know exactly what's happening then. And I wonder, too, if you can't get a sample when that comes out to see if it...
That's true. Maybe to see if it was something, like you said, or just,
Yeah, who knows?
Has body changed? No,
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know. I have no idea. Like, I know there's a little wire and it's got some coating on it. And that coating absorbs interstitial fluid and gives you, like, I know all that, but I don't know the rest. I don't know if it's going to change enough where you might see an improvement. I don't know if it was in John. There's no way. Who knows? You know what I mean?
He's a special
boy. That's all.
He is. Yes.
John, your interstitial fluid is very, very finicky. Did you do all the things? Did you make sure he was hydrated and like get his blood sugar stable and like?
We did So, and even, talk to Dexcom constantly where, okay, is it, I even remember being on with one point, not the CEO, but someone from, like bigger above customer service where it's like, okay, is it in the right spot? And trying to, do like even a Facebook or like a Zoom meeting a chat where it's like, okay, try different locations. Are we putting it on right? Are we, no. And it just, hydrated. Are we, blood sugars were perfect. We would, check the meter and it was like, why is it just not working? Bad batteries, bad receiver. Maybe it was, constantly. So then it's just, we're done.
Yeah. Well,
I tried.
I would have tried. Probably would have done the exact same thing. I'm in the awkward position of accepting very happily ads from Dexcom and having an incredible experience with it. So I'm not the right person to ask because it works great for us.
No, and it does. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Eventually I should reach out for Freestyle Libre as well for you. Who needs, you could always have more ads.
Well,
Scott,
it doesn't work that way, though.
Oh, best. Okay.
I can't do Ford and Chevy at the same time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ford and Chevy wouldn't like that.
That makes sense. All right. I understand.
There are some concessions you make when you sign deals with people. And one of them might be not to tell somebody about a Mustang when you're in an ad. Like, I can talk about it in the show like we are now. I couldn't do it. You know what? It's interesting. I think contractually I can't do it, but ethically I wouldn't do it. Like, I have a business relationship with them. I wouldn't like go taking money from like the gas station across the street being like, hey, you can go to Sunoco or Gulf. I'm happy to tell you about either of them. It just would seem like a dick move in my, like, just me personally.
Okay, no, you are not. You don't know. Don't need to be like that.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I could use some more money. Not going to lie to you about that. But I definitely wouldn't do that to any of the advertisers. That just seems...
I think we all could use more money, but yes.
Well, especially you don't even have a job. You just sit at home.
Yeah. No, you and I both know that there's always, that's a full-time job, just being at home.
Kelly and I were just talking about this the other day, and I said, still, I mean, it's now 21 years since I became a stay-at-home parent, right? And back then, people who I guess were my age now looked at me like I was like a scumbag. Like, really, like I was taking advantage of my wife. And it's not an easy job. Like, I try to, like, no. I simply say, like, I haven't seen television when the sun is up in like 20 years. And I don't use that, but it's a good measure. Like, I'm trying to say, like, I don't have time to stop. You know what I mean? Like, there's just my day, I get up and there's something to do, and it leads to the next thing to do, and it leads to the next thing, and meals and stuff around the house. Like, today, I need to have someone come out and fix my oven. So I will get somebody on the phone, and like, we'll talk them through that, and they will come and they'll be here. Like, I'm not fixing the oven, but I'm going to pay bills, and then you're
on standby.
I have laundry to fold like you wouldn't believe. And I think the sheets need to be stripped off the bed and washed, and et cetera, and on and on and on. And it's not exciting stuff. It's nothing like where you're like, oh, I went to the DOD today and I told
that's not exciting sometimes either, Scott.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't sound like a big deal. Like, it's not I went to a bank or I drove a truck, or it sounds like you did the laundry, except no one wants to do the laundry. So, it's not a job that it's not a job that a lot of people put stock in as being important, but, see how important it is when you can't find clean socks,
Oh, yeah. No, or you forget to make, or, you're the first person, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
I don't know. What is for dinner?
I'll tell you. Yeah. If you want to know what it feels like to be rejected, have someone tell you they didn't like dinner 5 nights in a row.
Yes, especially we've also had that conversation at the house where it's like, Mom, I feel like you're making the same thing and it's like, yes, every week I have to have similar things and I need ideas. Anyone's got any ideas besides pizza? Mm-hmm. No.
How many animals do you think there are? And vegetables. I always say that. I'm like, they're like, we would like something different. I said, I don't know what you think, but you can eat a cow, a pig.
Yeah, fish. We can do that. That's about it. Yep.
Bugs that crawl on the bottom of the ocean. That's the end, really. They can be baked, fried, grilled. Your options are now done there too.
You're like, yep. No. Well, and it's fun so my husband being a teacher, we take turns. So during the summer, those roles get to switch. So by the end of the summer, he's like, yep, I'm ready. And I understand. Yep. So am I, where he's like, I don't know how you do this. I'm like, I don't know how we do it either, but you just do it.
It's maddening sometimes. And the days like blend together because you don't leave the house, or, you know what I mean? Like you sometimes you don't leave the house. So you have no conscious, like, at least when you commute, you're like, okay, well, I drove to work. I drove home from work.
Yeah. Sometimes, and then now I think everyone could probably relate more to us because, with COVID, that first, those first few weeks, I think we all were in a blur.
Yeah.
It's almost like being on a vacation, but we're not, or we're on vacation, but no one's having fun.
Yeah. No, you're on vacation, except the beach blanket's going to kill you. So and for all those people who are now thinking like, I'm stuck in my house, I want to get out of here. I have felt like that for 21 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I think. Those 7 years, I wouldn't change it for the world. But then I think, if you had to go back, you'd make that shift and you're like, oh, so now I'm on the other end of it being like, I don't know how I did that for 7 years. Yeah. Wow. No. And it goes by fast too. So you're like, well, I can't tell you what happened. Those 2 people are still alive and hopefully will be great people when they grow up. But we won't know yet. So fingers crossed.
Well, yeah, that's the other stuff, is a lot of it's not measurable, which is how people get away with doing it poorly too, because you don't get judged your boss looks over your shoulder sometimes, but if your kid's going to grow up to be a serial killer, you don't find out until 3 girls go missing from the park. So you don't, it's not like when they're 8, you're like, oh, I didn't do a good job today, or I could have said this instead of that, or, maybe it would have been important to teach them to not step on the flowers or whatever it ends up being. But you don't get judged in the moment. It's and what always scared me about it, would put a lot of, I do mean scared, like it pressured me into wanting to be a good parent, was the idea that, like, they're not a house you paint. You can't paint it, step back and go, oh, why did we pick orange? And then we'll repaint it again. Like, when you step back and they're 25 and you're like, oh my God, the kid's a prick. Like, it's too late then. You know what I mean? You can't start over. So that put I do feel like it was pressure. Like, I did not want to screw this up very badly. Like, I thought the worst thing I could live through was like the last 25 years of my life, looking back going, oh my God, I screwed those human beings up,
No, well, I must say, I think any parent, you're right. None of us intentionally want to, and that is our last, I don't know, especially with your children. My children, we're not sure which spouse, me or my husband, but yeah, strong-willed. We are a strong-willed type A family, which can be good, but it can also be extremely challenging at certain intervals.
I've had those thoughts. I was like, why does everyone have an opinion right now?
Yeah. And no one asked you for those opinions. So please
if you want to have an opinion, get a job. Okay.
Yeah, keep them to yourself. Yeah. Yes.
Here's 3 small bills. If you pay these, I will let you vote on this.
There you go. Then you get a voting right. Yeah, that's what, John, that's where we've been trying to drill. So so I have 4th graders, 5th graders who have phones right now who, personal opinion, my 5th grader or soon to be 5th grader does not need a phone. What would you do with a phone? Now, I can argue, yes, for texting and blood sugar. Yes. But the rest of these little 4th and 5th graders, no. So our new one has been, you can get a phone when you get a job. And you don't have one. So work for it, buddy. You can go.
That's a polite way.
Got a few more years.
Kid. Yeah, that's a polite way of telling that kid he's not getting a phone. It's funny when I agree. I'm gonna contradict myself. I completely agree with you, and yet my children have had phones since they were tiny and little.
Okay.
And Arden got one in kindergarten.
We'll see. Okay, different perspective. I mean, Arden, again, if it was more used for, I don't know, or, your children best.
No, I don't. Here's what I'm...
Okay. No, I don't. No, yes, you do,
no,
Scott. Come on.
I don't know myself best. But so when Arden went to kindergarten, like Dexcom, there was no Dexcom. Okay, so we were like, all we could think of was that there was these 20 minutes where Arden would be in transit. That's how it felt. And what if she had a problem on the bus? There is a provision in Arden's 504 plan for how the bus can be stopped and I can be contacted. Like, that's how crazy it felt back then. And we wouldn't do that anymore. She's too old anyway, but
she would hate you if you did.
Can you imagine? But there was actually like, there was a process in place that if Arden were to have a seizure on a bus, that the bus would be stopped, 911 would be called, and the school would contact me and give me the location of the bus. Like, that's how, like, concerned we were back then about it. And so we thought, what if Arden's feeling low on the bus and she's 5? We'd want her to be able to call and tell somebody, right? So
no, that makes sense.
So we go to get her a phone, and, we're not crazy and we're not wealthy. So we were just like, here's a flip phone. And I remember standing in the AT&T store and she couldn't operate it. She just didn't, she couldn't, there were too many buttons. You had to scroll through menus. It wasn't intuitive. It didn't work. And the iPhone had just come out maybe the year or so before. And she picked that thing up and immediately knew how to use it. It was incredibly intuitive. And so my 5-year-old had an iPhone, and every parent of every child in the town I live in hated us for it. And I understand. And to them, I say, too bad.
Yep. Too bad. Too sad. Yeah. All right. Well, when John Armstrong listens to this podcast, when it does come out, not until you get a job, bud.
Just like that, John. You wanted a phone, you got to get rid of that Libre, scare your mom a little bit. And then...
Don't give him ideas, Scott.
Then she'll be like, okay. What's he going to do with that phone anyway?
I don't.
Watch some moron on TikTok fall over? It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Although it would be nice if he knew how to listen to a podcast. I could use some more downloads.
That's true. I could put him on there for you. Yeah. And probably could figure out, I'm sure, of the podcast versus his mother. Yes.
Where'd you find the show?
I'm sorry?
How did you find the podcast?
So surprisingly, we would go to our endocrinologist, and it was a nurse who we become best friends with, who is also type 1. So it's phenomenal working with that nurse. And that's what she said. Have you ever listened to this podcast? I was like, no, I don't do podcasts. She's like, you should really try. So I said, okay, finally. And yeah, I knew, and that's how we started hearing about it. And that, so finally had the time when COVID hit. I said, all right, I'll podcast. Let me see.
So you're not podcasting, you're listening. I'm podcasting. You're listening to the podcast.
I am listening to the podcast. Listening.
You would have to, I have to tell you, I at my
age,
I
can't even get the terminology correct.
I know. It's fascinating that you found it. Well, thanks to the person who told you about it and all the healthcare workers who tell people about the podcast. I'm very grateful for that. And
we've also passed it and shared it. We've had, recent friends who've contacted I know so-and-so, they just had their child. First thing I say, Juicebox.
Thank you. That's very nice. I know a woman who is, I love asking people how they find the show because some of the stories are great. Somebody just told me the woman that does her eyebrows told her about it. I was like, that's the best. Thank you. I just imagine like the wax is on and they're.
I was like, that's pretty.
She's like, have you tried the Juicebox podcast?
Random conversation. Why not?
I am really fast. Did you hear recently the Sophia, the little girl from Russia who found it on her own?
No, so that is on so we've been traveling and I put it in the car. So that is on our next one when we hit the road later this week.
She's sarcastic and smart and really like a self-starter. And she found it on her own and got herself directed her mom about the technology she needed and everything. I find that one, that was really heartwarming to think that a 14-year-old, wait, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the way she started looking and found the podcast is really something. So,
we also just listened to the one too. The other day was sneaking food. Mm-hmm. So that was, and just trying to have John, just have it consciously in the background. So he kind of hear it, trying to, not that we sneak food often, but, I think it was good reminder to think of, making sure I'm not putting things off limit or how I respond of, wait, what's your blood sugar at? Or, make him think otherwise, because you don't know what these little ones sometimes are thinking.
Right. That was with Erica, right?
Yes.
She's good,
and it was fantastic. Just again, helpful of, again, we have this, so again, technology. So now just bolus for it or talk to us, trying to keep that open line of communication.
I like her a lot, actually. When she, we did the first couple things we said we were going to do together, and she's like, well, I hope we see each other again. And I was like, oh, you're not getting out of this that easy. So I was like, you're good at this. You'll be back. Don't you worry. But yeah, she does a great job.
And it's just things like those different topics where you're just able to pull out and flush out and you're like, this is perfect. Or, am I being mindful or am I doing this? It's been phenomenal. A great asset versus, I know there's other people who have maybe those type 1 communities. I don't think in our area, there's not as much.
I like the way you're thinking about it. Like you're like it's background music almost. Like you put it on so that he kind of hears the ideas without it being kind of jammed down his throat. Is that the idea?
Correct. Yes. Or just, and I think too, to show him that again, it's just not you. There are, other people. Yeah. And, other people dealing with different things, whether it be type 1 or, different issues, things that we can think of later down the road. My husband, at one point he came home and I said, I just listened to the podcast with Scott and you had a guest on there who was from Colorado and who was doing mushrooms and and acid tripping. And my husband's like, really? I said, well, you don't know. I was just curious. Something different. It was on in the background.
That was was it the girl that came on to talk about the psychedelics?
Yes.
Yes.
He's like, really? Are you listening? Yeah. And I said too, I would be interested in taking John, I've been to Colorado briefly and I was like, I'm curious. You mentioned about the altitude. Is that true? Would that affect insulin? I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear stuff like from all over the place where you're just like, wow, that's a thing. I go up higher and my insulin works better. And that happens for some people, or vice versa. They're up for a while and they come back down and they have a weird change. That stuff's. I listen. If your son finds mushrooms off of that podcast, well, then I should be charging more for my ads because people are really listening. I don't imagine that's how people are gonna make the last decision to do a psychedelic.
Like, really? I'd be like, yes, I was on this podcast talking about.
Well, you know what I loved about her is that she so earnestly just wanted to make sure people's drugs were safe.
She was responsible, and I think everyone, again, and I would argue, I can use your government lingo. She was a subject matter expert, SME.
She definitely had information I didn't have. So
you and me both. I was just like, wow, okay.
Although there was one time, so I rolled with her fine, right? I thought everything she was doing was really cool, but I was gobsmacked one time because we were pretty far through the episode, and I was like, so you don't do any harder drugs, right? And she goes, no. Well, cocaine. And I was like, wait, what? I was like,
that's kind of, wow.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, how do you grade your schedules of drugs? I was like, I think that's pretty harsh. No. But she's like, nah, not if you do it right. I was like, oh, okay. I might have to disagree with you there. But it was, it's just, I just in general think it's super interesting to listen to people with different perspectives. If somebody just comes on and agrees with you all the time, I don't get what that does. And, you want people from different walks of life so you can hear things. I never thought I'd hear somebody answer the question, you don't do hard drugs, with no, I don't, but I do cocaine. I just never thought that would happen. So I was like, wow, that was really interesting.
Different perspectives are good.
Yeah. The perspective that I can't seem to nail down on the show is being in prison with diabetes.
That I don't.
I am trying so hard to get somebody who's been not just in the county lockup, but in prison. And
actually with it. I
get so close and then I can never get it to work out. So, they either have parole issues or they get scared about there's something at the end.
Maybe putting their name to it.
I've been through it with a number of people and I can never get somebody to record. So one day.
That would be interesting.
Can you even imagine? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Seriously,
how would you do that? There's actually, I saw a horrible movie about that a while ago. I don't know.
You saw a horrible movie about having diabetes?
It wasn't that good of a movie, but that's how it was. I guess the wife committed a murder, and she ended up, we're like, but she's, at one point you see her injecting an MDI into her leg, and you're like, wait, she has diabetes, and she ends up going to prison. And that's how the husband is able to help her escape.
Wait a minute. What movie was this?
I don't know. I'm going to have to Google it and send it to you later.
I'm doing it now. My Googling.
Okay, you Google. Yeah, you do have your Google skills. I'm trying to think who was in it.
Was Adrian Brody and Forrest Whitaker in it?
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly. Those are two pretty obvious people. You would know.
I don't know people. I'm sorry. I don't watch a whole bunch of movies.
Well, that makes it worse. If you only
well, it was one of those nights, sitting up on a Friday night and you're like, hey, let's Amazon something. The kids were in bed and we ended up on this movie and you're just like, what in the world? But yeah, he ended up breaking her out of prison. They had a kid, I think, at one point too. I'm rambling and it sounds horrible.
No. Wait a minute. We're going to try one more time. Prison movie.
Now I need to Google it too.
Diabetes.
Prison movie.
I keep getting The Experiment.
I don't know. Hang on. I'll pull it and I'm going to see what it shows me up. Let's see if I can see any pictures.
The Next 3 Days.
Possibly. Hang on. The Next 3 days. I'm pulling it up now.
All right.
But yes, he ends up, because she's diabetic, he's able to mess with her blood sugar, report or something. And through that, she goes, she's then hospitalized because I think she's going in a DKA. And then he breaks in through the hospital.
Is it The Next 3 days? Do we have it?
It has to be.
It has to be. I feel like you don't know. Hold on a second.
Hang on. The Next 3 days.
With Russell Crowe?
No, was Russell Crowe in it? Yes, it was Russell Crowe. Yes.
Okay. And you're saying this was not a good movie?
I mean,
What do you think? Are you afraid Russell Crowe's going to hear this?
he might be listening. No, it was just kind of, you look at it, you're like, oh, I mean, I would say it's entertaining. How's that? I don't know. My movie, like I said, I don't do a whole bunch of movies. So it's kind of like, all right,
Well,
it's something we sat and watched. And you're like, I think from a diabetic, you're like, wow, she shot that. Did she really put that MDI in that quick? She didn't even hold it for 3 seconds, stuff like that. But,
well, here's what it says on Rotten Tomatoes. Russell Crowe and Elizabeth Banks give it their all, but their solid performances aren't quite enough to compensate for the next 3 days' uneven pace and implausible plot. Well,
okay, yep, I would say that sums it up.
In fairness, 1 of every 2 people that saw it liked it. So, by the way, also on my Google search page, when I Googled prison movie diabetes, I got, what disease does Kristen Stewart have in Panic Room?
Oh.
And now I want to know. Hold on a second. Does it not tell you? Well, that's
now you have to see it.
Well, not only that, but that's bullshit. Now I have to bleep out my when I say shit, because how does
deep?
Seriously, it's too late. You missed it. All right. Well, now we'll never know what disease Kristen Stewart had in Panic Room, but
I'll look later. We'll look it up.
I don't care anymore. I'm letting it go.
There you go. Let it go.
I like these episodes where nobody talks about anything.
I know. So now after I get off, the kids are gonna be like, what did you talk about?
Tell them nothing. I would say we mostly talked about how you're not getting a cell phone.
Yes. Well, that's it. So there you go. There's your title right there. No cell phone till you get a job. Yes.
Pretty much going to be Hayden Panettiere was almost Kristen Stewart in Panic Room, which is something I also learned on Google. The girl from
and now you have a movie that you and your wife can watch later.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to see a movie that, even though the actors tried really hard, still sucked.
There you go. They tried. It counts. Right?
So
Isn't that good parenting? You tried.
No, you know what you should tell your son when you get off here? You should be like, Scott told me that you said to him you were going to stare at me and try to make me feel bad and make him think I didn't say it. Put it back on.
Well, so beforehand, we're getting ready to go on a bike ride. It's like 9:15. I'm like, all right, I'm down to the wire on schedules. I'm like, all right, we'll go on a quick bike ride around. So John's like, can I be on the podcast? I was like, you might. So then my daughter was like, but I want to be on it too. I'm like, well, what would you say? She's like, I don't know. I have to live with him. I'm like, all right, well, that's fair. And they just started bickering about it. I'm like, okay, not even on the podcast yet. Let's take a deep breath.
I can't believe you took your kids on a bike ride before you're going to be on a podcast.
Well, I figured I need to clear my mind. We need to, we're visiting
stuff.
Family right now, hanging out for, I told you we're in South Carolina. So, it's just nice. Everyone had breakfast. Everyone get out. Let's all just bike around a little island. Everyone just kind of bike around. I think hopefully, again, get the endorphins going. It's not a bad thing, and it's not hot yet. So
it's so hot here today. Listen,
which means it's gonna be hot here then.
Probably, yeah. I don't know where you're staying, but they got a rock solid internet connection, and I appreciate that.
I will let them know.
Yeah,
thank you.
Please tell them thank you. Hey, listen, if your daughter wants to come on here at the end and trash your son, it's okay with me.
Because then that's going to be I'm
How
sure
old
she
is
will. So my daughter Elizabeth is 7.
Can you imagine if she jumped on here and she's like, "Can I speak candidly? That kid's a fucking asshole." She's just like, and I'll tell you another thing. She starts like trashing you and your husband. I would love it. Be amazing.
She does. Yeah, that one. She's fine.
That one.
That one's going on 20. Well, now that's her big thing, and so now we deal with that. So again. We're watching for her. I'm hoping nothing comes out of it. But so, John will be like, I'm low, and he is low legitimately. So I give him juice, and she'll be like, yep, I'm low too, Mom. Pass some juice over. And I'm like, yes, you can have a little juice too. I
heard somewhere the other day that like 2 juice boxes is the sugar equivalent of how much sugar a person ate in a week, like 100 years ago or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a startling idea. Do you worry about her getting type 1?
I do. I mean, every now and then it had to be 2, I would say probably 2 years ago, we were in Boston visiting as we were making our way up to Maine. And she just kept sucking water down. And I'm like, okay, again, it's hot. But then at one point, just getting paranoia was starting to set in. So I remember sitting in the hotel room and John's trying to talk to her because we're like, we're going to prick your finger. And he's like, it's not going to hurt her. Child, I'm sure people thought we were murdering her. Bloody murder. It was screaming, and she was fine. But and John's like, I do this every day. What's your problem? She's like, it hurt. And so she was fine.
By the way, anyone who thinks it doesn't hurt is out of their mind. I do it semi-frequently, I guess.
Do you?
Yeah, just I didn't for years. I very purposefully, when Arden was little, because we were testing
so much.
Oh my God, like 10 times a day or more.
Yeah, that's where we were at. Yeah.
And so I very purposely never tested my blood sugar or even pricked my finger, because I remember telling my wife and feeling very earnestly that if I know what it feels like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it to her. So
that's true. That is probably.
So I was like, no. But now I do it a lot. And there are times where you're just like, wow, did that needle hit the bone in my middle of my finger? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really feels like, I know it doesn't, like I'm being, sarcastic, but it like, if sometimes it hits you, you're like, woo, okay. Like it hits a nerve or something that zaps you for a second.
That'll wake you up. Well, that's what, and thankfully John, pretty much, I think that's where that type A thankfully came in for both of, with me and him. Being at home at the time, it was me and him going at it. I mean, my husband was at work, and that's where it's like, I can do it or you can do it. And he's like, nope, I totally want to do it. And he took that on pretty quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were times we were the same way of, okay, let's trying to learn how to draw syringes and, sticking yourself, or purposely or accidentally, it happens. And just trying to understand.
So yesterday in general, I'll let you go in a second, but yesterday Arden went to the beach with her friends. So she's getting ready to leave the house, and she's got supplies with her, and I said, I think there's only like 45 units left in your pod. Do you want to change it now before you go, or run the risk of having to change it while you're out? And she's like, I'll just change it while I'm out if I have to. And I was like, okay. She's like, I don't think I'm going to need 45 units today. And I was like, okay. So she left. 20 minutes later, she texts me, the pod just expired on time. I was like, wait, it's expired, or it just reached its, like, because the pod has an 8-hour grace period.
I was going to say, okay, that's what I was just going to ask the same thing. I'm like, I thought I could.
So it was
run it out, right?
So she's like, it has 8 more hours. She's texting me, it has 8 more hours, right? And I was like, yeah, you're good. So they go to the beach where, she's not going to need a ton of insulin there. And then, but they went to a restaurant afterwards. She got like a waffle or something. She's with all of her girlfriends, and it was still fine there. But she gets home and she goes, my pot has a unit left in it. I have to change it. And I was like, okay. So she's doing it. She's like, give me a hand for a second. I started to walk over, and I was like, actually, can you get mom to do this? Like, I got to run. So like, I kind of took off. I couldn't help her. And I heard her say to Kelly, it's okay, I got it. Which was like I don't want you near me on this. Like, she does not trust Kelly for something.
Oh, well, I think there is that one parent who it just naturally falls on. So it's the same thing. Like, he'll change out his pod and I'm just watching, or, and yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure my wife can do it fine, but at the same time, she's not accustomed to it either. I actually did get to watch them do a Dexcom together over FaceTime when I was away recently, and it looked like an Abbott and Costello routine. I wish I could have recorded that. It was just a lot of mom, mom, mom. I'll do it myself. It's okay.
I try. That's what I try to remind John too. He's like, you're not doing it right. I'm like, I don't know. You don't know either. We're trying. Okay. Give your mom slack. I'm trying.
You're 10 and I used to work at the DOD. So calm down.
I know. Like, you're fired. You can't fire your own children, can you? You're like, just let me do this now.
You can, but it's looked upon very unfavorably by society. Very unfavorably.
That's true.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. I mean, you could just abandon them at a strip mall or something like that.
No. I never hear the end of that. No.
I never hear the end of that. Who would you never hear the end of it from?
No, I know. No, I don't know.
Who would complain most if you abandoned one of your children?
I'm sure I have a list of people.
Yeah.
Now I'm kidding.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should have?
I can't imagine. I'm trying to think other email, what I sent to you in my email.
Your email was like, I just got Omnipod. I hope this will be a fun conversation. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, there you go. It was awesome then. Cool. No, I think the Omnipod is awesome. I think by the podcast, because of the podcast and because of you. It's been awesome.
I appreciate that. You have it all dialed in now. It's doing what you need it to do.
I think so. I mean, like I said, there's still a lot of it. I know it's us. If I obviously, like I said, I'm trying to calculate for that exercise or I didn't bolus correctly.
Mhm.
So, but I would say overall, I mean, our numbers are coming out better. And I think that's where when we hit it, we were coming out of the honeymoon phase. And then I think we've been more, and now summer, I think we all goes, maybe it's just us, but I feel like it's a waves. Like Christmas, well, Christmas is just full of junk. You know, you have Thanksgiving, Halloween, it just keeps going. And then, summer hits. So I usually eat more junk than what we normally eat, but we're happy with it.
Also more sedentary at colder times of year. You're not moving around as much. He's not being tortured with that soccer, I would imagine.
Well, and that soccer's been a while. So then that's taekwondo or other things that we're trying to, just be active, force, bike rides, go.
Are they doing that stuff again? Like, can you do taekwondo again?
We're starting to open up. So everything, and that's so again, different where we were, our school was open and in person all year.
Oh, cool. Did he go?
He did. So we weren't sure. I read a bunch of things and it was kind of like, wear your mask, wash our hands, and let's see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, taekwondo has been open. And just, I think everyone trying to be out and be more active when you're at home anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas what we try to do.
I think that you'll see, some people can see a difference with hot weather, with cold weather, with inactivity, more activity, but you just kind of adjust from it. And
yeah. Or we're at the beach. We were at the beach yesterday. So blood sugar seemed to regulate itself. We're in the pool. So more importantly, every now and then I'm like, do you still have your parts on? Because I'm, I don't want to lose a pod if I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose, so it's been taped up pretty good. So far it's holding, but I agree. It
sounds like you guys are doing pretty well.
Yeah. I would say for, I guess it's been to 3 years. You said still fairly young, but still trying.
No, it does. You have a good attitude, and will you share an A1C with me?
Okay, so I've been cheating. We've gone up a little.
I've been cheating. Wait a minute.
I've been cheating. We've been cheating on the A1C. I've been using, whatever that app is to tell me what it is. I haven't really. Every time I try to get blood drawn to get it for the A1C, our endo has been doing the Zoom thing for the last year. So we've been sending reports. So we've gone up. Right now, I think we were at 6.8 was our last, which is, to me, was a little higher than what I want. So,
yeah, listen, it's a good A1C. I don't know what you're upset about.
Okay, that's what I didn't know. Anything under 7, right?
For me, it's as low as you can get it without having lows. That's how I think of it.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I remember when we first got it, he was like at 5 something, and they're like, "That's too low for our A1C."
Yeah. Listen,
like,
if
really?
you can get a lower A1C without having long, protracted, or dangerous lows throughout the day, then I think that's great. If you're still learning how to do stuff, which it seems like you are a little bit, a 6.8 is not is nothing to be ashamed of. Certainly, it's a really solid A1C. I would think there's room in there for you to bring the number down. And,
I think so too.
And it comes with experience.
And I think that's what more experience as well as just, or making those adjustments. I think you guys probably with more of the Dexcom, because it's constantly, you're getting that every 5 minutes where I have to we say bink in, where I have to check it physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just being sometimes forgetful or, hey, you just got done eating 15 minutes. Let's, or we find, making sure I'm bolusing far enough for him.
Yeah. No,
because that kid's ready to eat.
But that's the little stuff, like remembering. Honestly, if your basal's right, you remember to pre-bolus and you understand the difference between the impacts of, one carb to the next. I think that's an A1C in this, in the low 6s.
Coming down.
Yeah, in the low 6s. And then getting into the 5s, if you're going to eat like a standard kind of American diet, is knowing how to be aggressive around certain foods, not abiding high blood sugars, meaning like you don't see a 140 and just go, oh, well, after this TV show, I'll do it. Like you just like, go 140, you smack it and get rid of it.
Well, that's what we're trying to catch it, I think, is where, in advance of, because you get, you know what it's like. You're in the normal day of routine of things and, okay, I know it's going to kick in. Or I do like the Omnipod. It does that correction factor already, or tell me how much IOB you have on. Mm-hmm. So that's been helpful. So that way I'm not continuing to flush with insulin. I need to wait for it to go through. And then, so working that with John. Right, if you already have that much on, just wait a second.
You want me to fry your mind a little?
Yes, sure.
Okay. The insulin on board is a dummy setting that makes its calculation based on how many hours your endo told the pump insulin.
But I can
lasts in
change
your
it,
system.
right?
You can, but you have to find what is true. So
Okay, based on him, like
Yeah.
how long it takes to run through his system,
right,
or
right. Like if you
Okay.
think insulin, there's a lot of different ways to think about it. But if you think insulin lasts in his system for 4 hours, then you set that setting at 4 hours, right? This is how long the insulin lasts in the system. And then if 2 hours after you've bolused, his blood sugar is 250 because you completely, missed on the food, the thing's still going to think he has insulin on board. So that's an example of,
Okay.
So try to imagine this: 10 carbs of some simple, like easy digestible food, right?
Mhm.
And then 10 carbs of, I don't know, rice and Chinese food. So the rice and Chinese food is going to need more insulin likely than this regular,
10.
easy to diagnose food, to digest food. But you just put in 10 carbs because you count the 10 carbs. So in the case of the easy digestible food, it works great. Put in 10 carbs, a little bit of a pre-bolus. You don't spike too much. You don't get low later. Yay, my insulin to carb ratio works great. But then you have Chinese food and you count the carbs and you put in the insulin and you spike anyway and you stay high. Well, it's not that your insulin to carb ratio is messed up. It's that it doesn't work for Chinese food.
Correct. So that's when I'm
Be more aggressive.
more aggressive, as well as with Omnipod. I can do, the extend.
You could do an
Bolus, right?
extended bolus. You could do a temp basal increase. There are lots of ways to get insulin in there. But the point is, if you count the carbs, put in the insulin, get super high, and an hour later when he's 300, tell it, I want to correct, it'll say, no, you still have insulin on board.
In board. Okay.
Right? So you do have insulin on board. It's just not enough insulin for Chinese food.
Correct. Okay. So
Right.
just, again, being mindful of what you're eating.
Yeah. The pro tip about glycemic load and glycemic index goes through that really kind of carefully. But in my mind, it's basal, pre-bolus, glycemic load and index, and then staying flexible. If you can do those 4 things, his A1C will be in the low 6s.
That'd be well, or I think that's what we're all wanting, and
Sure.
obviously because of that, the helps extend later. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, listen, and you're not going to be rushed to it. Like, you can listen to those episodes, those pro tip episodes, and I think they'll get you to it more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to live through the experiences to have real world
Examples of things to try. Yeah.
to point to. And so that's the game, is learn as much as you can, keep trying stuff, it'll work out.
Perfect.
That's it.
Well, and keep laughing. Thanks, Scott.
Well, that's my job. The rest of it is on
Well,
you.
yes, I appreciate
I
it.
can't
Thank
do the
you.
other stuff. You're very welcome. I'm super glad you did this. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, anytime. This was fun.
Thank you. Hold on one
All
second.
right. Well, you have a good one.
Oh, you too. Hold on one second. Hey, huge thanks to Jessica for coming on the show today and doing whatever it is we just did together. And a bigger thank you, even yet, a bigger thank you, and even a bigger and woo, Dexcom.com/Juicebox. Thanks so much to the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. There are links at juiceboxpodcast.com and in the show notes of your podcast player to Dexcom, Omnipod, and all of the sponsors. Check them out. When you click on the links, you're helping the podcast. And you're helping yourself too. And Dexcom's a hell of a thing. You're going to love it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.